So putting aside definition of depression, if you just focus on how to overcome it, the necessary basis would be to recognize that first and foremost, depression is not caused by anything external to you. There might be external reasons, but depression is more of a state of mind in regard to those reasons, in regard to those things that seemingly are the ones making us depressed. So, and this is true for any unpleasant feeling, any unpleasant mental state. And it's a natural tendency to assume that it's the world and it's the things in the world that righteously upset us or affect us, cause the emotional responses and so on, including depression as a mental state. But if that were truly the case, then freedom from anything unpleasant would not be possible. It wouldn't be possible to free yourself from suffering of any kind, which includes depression as well, because if it were truly rooted in external circumstances, in basically in your environment, you can't control that. And above all, like even if you could control now, you can't control what happened in the past, obviously, and you certainly can't control what's going to happen in the future. So if the attitude is still that it's the environment's responsibility, the reason is the environment, and I'm subjected to this depression or any other mental state, there won't be any uprooting of depression unless that attitude changes. So it can be slightly unpleasant to admit that, because then immediately people would jump onto the assumption, oh, so what, is it my fault? Nobody talks about fault, but we're talking about responsibility. So it is your responsibility to give in or to not give in to the feelings that have been caused by the world. And the reason why it is your responsibility is because none of the things you do on account of your feelings are actually can actually be rooted in those feelings. And by that I mean that the world, say your experience of this or that, makes you feel good or bad, pleasantly, unpleasantly, and that's it. That's the experience in itself. But it's the ignorant mind, the mind that hasn't been trained, hasn't been restrained, that when it's touched by pleasure, it will want more of it automatically. It's not a rational, sort of premeditated decision. So agreeable things come to me, and the mind automatically jumps on it. And that's the result of an unrestrained mind that that's still under the influence of ignorance. Likewise, when there is the unpleasant experience coming my way, the unrestrained mind, under the influence of ignorance, will automatically resist it, try to get rid of it, try to prevent it from happening. And that's basically fighting the battle on a completely wrong ground. And you will maintain that wrong ground for as long as you maintain the gratuitous desire towards sensual pleasures. So as long as you maintain the gratuitous craving towards pleasant feeling. Because of that, you're also maintaining the gratuitous resistance to the unpleasant feeling. So depression, being one of the profound unpleasant feelings or unpleasant states of mind that have been sort of developed over a period of time, it's something that you have to stop regarding it as being rooted in the world. Even if the world was very unjust and things happened to you that now are making you righteously depressed, so to speak, you don't need to be the victim of the depression. So as a mental state of depression or any other unpleasant state, as I said, the problem of it is not in what happened or why you are depressed or all these things that seemingly revolve around it. The problem is you suffer on account of it. That's the sole issue. Because if, say, depression wasn't felt unpleasantly, you wouldn't suffer. It wouldn't be a problem. So you want to recognize where your responsibility lies. Not in the fact that you are experiencing depression or any other adverse state of the mind, but in the fact that you are responsible for resisting unpleasant experience. And you will remain resisting it for as long as you're equally indulging pleasant experience, wanting pleasant experience, delighting in the prospect of pleasant experience. That's why in the Buddhist teaching, the sense restraint needs to come first. You need to start saying no to gratuitous indulgence of pleasures, of unrestrained speech, careless speech, lapsing in your mindfulness, and so on. If you start restraining that, you'll get to understand then that, well, you get to see where the line is. You get to see what has been caused by the world, and then you get to see the responsibility for your own reaction towards it. And in that sense, whatever's depressing you, even if there is not a specific reason, if you just feel numb and depressed for whatever reason, the point is it's unpleasant. If you stop resisting the displeasure of it, depression can have no hold over you. And same goes for anxiety, same goes for any other state. But in order to get to that point where you can see that it's up to you to maintain the line which these phenomena cannot cross, in order to get there, you need to start restraining yourself in regard to things that you can actually control, such as how much you eat for sensuality, how much you talk out of the reason of sensuality, gossip, and so on, whether you keep the precepts, whether you live restrained by the virtue. Because if your body is leaking out all these unwholesome behaviors, you can't expect then to have any control over your mind, which is the root for these behaviors. So first you need to stop the outlets of the wrong behaviors. And that's why the Buddha kept talking about the training, and he trains himself thus, and because you need to keep repeating it. It's not like a determination that you make today, and then automatically it will be held for the rest of your life. No, it's just something you have to keep going back to, and drilling it, and drilling it, and drilling it, and drilling it, like any other form of training. So that's where you train in regard to, so that you can get to see that it's your own attitude in regard to what you're currently feeling. That's the root of depression, anxiety. That's the root of sensuality, for that matter, as well. Careless desires, and so on. And if you just deal with it on that level, you won't have to worry about the world at all. Because you'll know, if the world affects you, positively or negatively, it will have to do so through this gateway. The gateway of your attitude towards your own feelings. Not your attitude towards him or her, or what they say, or what happened, my past, my future, my plans, my anxieties. No. It's only what I'm feeling presently. That's where your attitude matters. If you're presently resisting it, you will suffer. If you're presently indulging it, you will suffer. If you're presently careless about it, you will also suffer. So, undoing the views that put the responsibility or the blame sometimes on the world and circumstances, not putting the blame on yourself either, but recognizing that the state of affairs is such that if you are careless in regard to the presently enduring feeling in your experience, you will be victim then to your mental states. If you learn how to train yourself and not deny the mental states, not blame the world, but recognize when there is an agreeable feeling, hold yourself back a bit. Don't just go for the pleasure that's offered and believe that everything else will disappear as a result of joy that's going to replace it. When there is an unpleasant feeling, then you will equally have strength to then not sink in it either, because you've been pretty much learning how to swim. And when there's neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling, you will be able to not give in to careless distraction and sort of mindless attitude, so to speak. So that's pretty much in brief, in the nutshell, how you should be dealing with any unpleasant mental state. Don't try to get rid of it. Don't blame the world. Recognize the unpleasantness of it and stop resisting the unpleasantness of it. In order to be able to stop resisting the unpleasantness of that mental state, you must develop yourself in regard to pleasant mental states as well. So you can't just have it pleasure, and when displeasure comes, you have all control over it. No. In order to be able to not be affected by unpleasant feelings, you have to be restraining yourself in regard to pleasant feelings. And that's why, in a way, already you get to discern the principle of the middle way. Even it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I'll just be moderate. You have to also recognize, moderate, it's not a fixed thing. What's moderate for someone, it's extreme for someone else. So it's not about moderation necessarily. It's more about recognition whether your attitude is rooted in sensuality, whether it's rooted in ill will, whether it's rooted in careless behavior, whether it's rooted in non-careless behavior. How that manifests practically, that varies, but you don't need to worry about, am I moderate enough, am I saying no enough. You have to worry about where your intentions are rooted in regard to your own feelings. So that's why it's not as easy as just moderate, just tone down your behavior and you'll be happy. No, because as I said, what's toned down for somebody, it isn't for somebody else. It all depends where your motivation is rooted. If your motivation is rooted in carelessly indulging pleasurable experiences of any kind, carelessly indulging a sense of taste, sensuality, visual, bodily, you will have no say then. When these experiences changes, you will have no say and you will have no other option but to then resist it. Because that's the attitude you've been cultivating, overdoing it. When there is a pleasure, you overdo towards it. When there is then pain, you overdo trying to get rid of it. So if that attitude if that kind of training starts to be implemented, then any long-lasting, persisting mental states will start to fade away. Because they do require a constant fuel. They do require maintenance, and now you stop maintaining it through these ignorant attitudes. And that's how, as I said, whatever the issues of the psychological nature might be bothering you, if your behavior is being kept in check, then you get to recognize your responsibility for your own attitude towards your own feelings, and then none of these states, no matter how long they've been, can exercise any influence over you, because the gateway for any influence over you, positive or negative, is through your attitude, your opening towards your own feelings.